A cold wind moved across the small bus station as Daniel stepped down from the old gray bus. The town looked quieter than he expected: rows of sleepy houses, a cafe with flickering lights, and a long empty road disappearing into the hills. Daniel adjusted the strap of his worn backpack. He had come to this town for work. The construction company he applied to needed laborers, and he needed money. After months of drifting between jobs, this was supposed to be a fresh start. But something about the town felt strange from the moment he arrived. The evening sky was turning orange when he walked toward the only cafe that seemed open. A small bell rang when he pushed the door. Inside, the warm smell of coffee and bread filled the room. A few locals sat quietly at tables. Behind the counter stood a woman in her late 20s. She was wiping a glass when she looked up. The moment her eyes landed on Daniel, the glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. She stared at him as if she had just seen a ghost. Daniel froze. Sorry," he said awkwardly. "Did I do something?" The woman slowly stepped closer, her face pale. You look exactly like her," she whispered. Daniel blinked. "Like who?" Her voice trembled. "My sister." The cafe suddenly felt silent. Even the customers turned to look. Daniel forced a small laugh. "Well, that's strange. I don't think I have a twin." The woman shook her head slowly. "No, not a twin." She stepped closer, studying his face carefully, like someone comparing memories. Then she said something that made Daniel's heart stop. Her name was Elena. Daniel's chest tightened. That name. He hadn't heard it in years. Before he could say anything, the woman spoke again. "And your name is Daniel." The room seemed to tilt. Daniel stared at her. "How do you know my name?" The woman looked just as shocked as he was. "Because," she said quietly, "my sister used to talk about you all the time." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He had never been to this town before. He had never met this woman. So how could her sister know him? The woman introduced herself as Maria. After closing the cafe early, she insisted Daniel sit down with her. They sat by the window as night slowly wrapped around the town. Maria placed 2 cups of tea on the table. Her hands still trembled. "You really don't remember my sister?" she asked. Daniel shook his head slowly. "I've never been here before." Maria studied him for a long moment. "She disappeared 10 years ago," she said quietly. Daniel felt a chill run through his body. "Disappeared?" Maria nodded. "She left the town suddenly. No one knew where she went. We searched everywhere." Daniel swallowed. "I'm sorry." Maria looked down at the table. "She used to talk about someone named Daniel. A boy she met years ago, someone she trusted more than anyone." Daniel felt his heart pound louder. "That's impossible," he said softly. But deep inside, something was stirring. A memory. Faint, like a half-forgotten dream. Maria stood up suddenly. "Come with me." Daniel hesitated. "Where?" "My house." 10 minutes later, Daniel followed Maria through a quiet street lined with old trees. Her house was small but warm. Maria walked to a shelf and pulled out a dusty photo album. She placed it in front of Daniel. "Look." Daniel slowly opened it. The first few pages showed 2 girls growing up together. Maria as a child. And another girl. Elena. Daniel froze. Because the moment he saw her face, something exploded inside his mind. A memory. A beach. Two teenagers laughing. A promise. His hands began to shake. That's impossible, he whispered. Maria leaned closer. What is it? Daniel pointed to the picture. I know her. Maria's eyes widened. You remember? Daniel closed his eyes as pieces of the past slowly returned. 10 years ago. Before everything went wrong. Before he lost his family. Before he left his hometown. He had met a girl during a summer trip with his uncle. Her name was Elena. They had spent weeks together exploring the town near the sea. Talking for hours. Dreaming about the future. She had told him about her sister. About wanting to leave her small town and see the world. Then one night she vanished. Daniel had searched everywhere. But she was gone. And eventually, life pulled him away. He thought he would never see her again. Maria looked at him with wide eyes. She told me about that summer, Maria whispered. Daniel felt his chest tighten. But why did she disappear? Maria hesitated. Then she said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. She didn't leave on her own. Daniel looked up. What do you mean? Maria's voice dropped. She was taken. The room went silent. Taken by who? Daniel asked. Maria looked toward the dark window. A powerful man in this town. Daniel's stomach twisted. Why? Maria's voice trembled. Because Elena saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Daniel felt anger rising inside him. What happened to her? Maria shook her head. We never found out. But then she slowly pushed another photo toward him. Daniel picked it up. It showed Elena standing beside a tall building. A hospital. Maria whispered. This was the last place she was seen. Daniel stared at the picture. Something inside him changed in that moment. He had come to this town looking for a job. But now he realized something else. He had come back for a reason. And somehow, fate had brought him here. To finish a story that started 10 years ago. Daniel looked at Maria. Tomorrow, he said quietly. We start looking for her. Maria's eyes filled with tears. You really believe she could still be alive? Daniel stared at Elena's smiling face in the photo. Yes. Because something deep in his heart told him one thing. This story wasn't over yet. And somewhere out there, Elena was still waiting. For Daniel to find her. The next morning, Daniel and Maria stood outside the old hospital. From the photo, the building looked abandoned. Broken windows. Peeling paint. A rusted gate hanging half open. Maria shivered. No one has used this place in years. Daniel stepped closer. Then why was Elena here? They walked through the gate. Inside, dust covered the floors like snow. Old wheelchairs sat in dark corners. The silence felt heavy. Daniel's flashlight beam moved across the walls. Then he stopped. There were scratches on the floor. Fresh ones. Someone had been here recently. Maria noticed them too. You see that? Daniel nodded slowly. They followed the marks down a hallway. At the end was a locked metal door. Daniel grabbed the handle. Locked. But he could hear something. A faint sound. Maria leaned closer. Her eyes widened. Did you hear that? Daniel nodded. A voice. Weak. Barely audible. Daniel's heart started pounding. He slammed his shoulder against the door once. Twice. The third time it burst open. Inside the room was darkness. Then Daniel's flashlight revealed something that made Maria gasp. A woman sat tied to a chair. Her hair long and messy. Her face thin. But her eyes, they were the same. Elena. Maria ran forward. Elena. The woman slowly looked up. Her voice was weak. Maria. Daniel untied the ropes quickly. Maria hugged her sister, crying. I thought I lost you forever. Elena looked at Daniel through tired eyes. For a moment she just stared. Then she whispered the same words Maria had said yesterday. You look exactly the same. Daniel felt his throat tighten. Elena. She smiled faintly. I knew you'd come. Daniel blinked. You did. Elena nodded slowly. Because 10 years ago, you promised you'd find me. Maria looked between them, confused. You two made a promise. Daniel remembered. That night on the beach. When Elena said she was scared of something. And he told her one thing. No matter where you go, I'll find you. Elena's voice trembled. I never stopped believing that. But suddenly a loud sound echoed through the hallway. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Daniel turned toward the door. A shadow moved across the hall. A deep voice spoke. I wondered who broke in. Daniel stepped forward. A tall man appeared in the doorway. His expensive suit looked out of place in the ruined hospital. Maria gasped. It's him. The man smiled coldly. The Curious Sisters, and their hero. Daniel clenched his fists. You kept her here for 10 years. The man shrugged. She saw something that could ruin me. Elena whispered weakly. He runs illegal medical experiments. Maria looked horrified. Daniel stepped forward. You're done. The man laughed. You think you can stop me? But before he could react, police sirens echoed outside. Maria held up her phone. I called them before we came. The man's smile disappeared. Minutes later, police officers stormed the building. The man was arrested on the spot. As they led him away, Elena leaned against Daniel. I'm finally free, she whispered. Daniel looked at her with a soft smile. You always were. Months later, the town slowly returned to normal. The hospital investigation revealed many crimes. The man went to prison. Maria reopened her cafe. Elena slowly recovered. And Daniel stayed in town. One evening, they sat outside the cafe watching the sunset. Elena smiled at him. Funny how life works. Daniel nodded. You mean how you disappeared for 10 years, and we still found each other? Elena shook her head softly. No. She looked into his eyes. I mean how the first thing I said when I saw you again was. Daniel laughed. You look like my missing sister. Elena smiled. And then I said your name. Daniel looked at the sky. And everything changed. Elena took his hand. Sometimes, she said quietly, fate just takes a long time to bring people back together. And this time, neither of them was going anywhere.